Hi everyone, this is Madiha Ahmed here, and I have Dr. Swati Shome with me here. It's such a pleasure, ma'am, to have met you in Pune and to be so surprised and overwhelmed to see a woman who was a scientist, who has done so much of work in the scientific domain, then moved into such a literary field, which was more of arts, and then got into more of this life coaching angle of talking on sex education and kind of spreading awareness on the gender and so many other things. So, ma'am, I would love to know about your bio briefly so that even the audience is aware of the same.
Well, I started as a cell biologist. So I did my PhD and postdoc in cell biology from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always interested in life. And but then when I became a mother, I wanted to study life at home because I had just kids growing up at home and I wanted to spend time with them. And then I realized in India, kids are not studying hands-on science activities, and I felt strongly about it, and I felt that I need to get into hands-on science activities. So I taught in a school for 7 years. I conducted a science club, and from there I got into science communication. And once I got into science communication, then I realized that one of the major fields that people are finding a trouble in is things related to relationships and sex. So that's when I said, wow, I mean, forget about science. This is something that affects the entire society. Nobody is there who doesn't need it. So I decided to write a book called Let's Talk About Guys, Girls, and Sex.
So that's the starting point of your writing part of the life, like you started writing books. So could you tell us, like, you said, you mentioned to me once that you have a son, and how was it like, what's the difference between how you grew up and how you were raised as a girl as compared to how you had to raise your boy, and especially being a strong mother, with such strong ideas and such a strong will and mind, and then kind of raising a child and a boy child. I'm sure it must have been a great kind of experience in terms of either challenges also, but also knowing how to deal with it because of your work. I mean, the kind of work that you did made you logically more sound, and you had a creative side to you. So I'm very interested to know that how did you kind of find, and what do you think now after you've raised your child and he's studying at college now, that what was the difference in the way you think you were raised as compared to how you raised him, and then him being a boy and you being a girl?
I have a daughter and a son. My
Okay.
daughter is in class 10 now, and my son is in college.
Mm-hmm.
And being a cell biologist and becoming a mother is amazing because then you
Wow.
know what's happening inside your body.
Wow.
Every week, ever since I knew that I had conceived them, I checked what stage, how many cells are they, how many inches or centimeters do they have a heartbeat today, or when will they start forming limbs. It's
Exciting.
really something that I don't think everybody has that opportunity of being a mother and observing what's happening in your body. I'm grateful that I had that experience, that I could
Okay.
check every single week what's happening. Once they were born, well, yeah, I've not. My parents were also, they were open in many aspects. Obviously, whether it was about doing anything, going abroad, living alone, all of that they were free with. But talking about relationships or sex was not done in my house.
Hmm.
That was not done, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It was a house where people hid the sanitary napkin and the underpants or underwear in the clothes, and then it's taken to the bathroom. It's not a subject that we talk about in the house. We hide it.
Mm-hmm.
We were allowed to go out and do anything during menstruation. That was never a question. But uh, yeah, my mother didn't go to the temple if she had her periods. She didn't want me to go to a temple that often. Sometimes she was a bit iffy about whether she was okay or not with it.
Mm-hmm.
For my kids, I tried to introduce it at a very young age.
Okay. How early, if I may know, like?
When my daughter was about 3 years old, and my daughter was 5 years old, and my son was 9 years old. I used to go swimming with them, and they used to ask me why I don't go swimming with them 5 days a month. And I told them that, you know, uh, that mom uses diapers, right? Because she bleeds every
Such a
month
good
for five
example to
days.
connect. Wow.
Right. So I
Okay.
said that they use diapers, and all mothers need diapers for 5 days a month because just like a pigeon has unfertilized eggs and they release them regularly, women also release unfertilized eggs every month.
Okay.
And that egg doesn't have any shell on it, but it's looks basically the egg and everything around the egg looks like a lot of blood. But we release that for 5 days a month, every month. And she
Okay.
needs diapers for that. For which my
Wow.
son then asked, why can't you control it? Because he was watching my daughter being toilet trained. So he said, why can't you control it? We learn how to control susu. And I
Oh,
was like, we can't. We can't control it. It's not like susu. It's not like peeing. You can't control
correct.
it. And then
Oh
he
my
said, I
God.
want to see the egg. I'm like, I just told you there's no egg and shell to see. It's just a bloody mess that you see. You don't see anything much beyond blood that's visible. But yes, from the time they were 9 years and 5 years old, they knew about periods. And after those few awkward questions, which at that time felt like the most awkward thing ever possible, it was no questions whatsoever. And I
Mhm.
left books around the house that explained
Okay. Okay. That's good. Mm.
body changes, adolescence changes. Those books I kept around
Mhm.
the house. Once in a while, I would read to them or make sure that they read a chapter before I left it around for them to read. Things like that.
Wow. Wow. So, Mama, I want to understand one thing when you said that there were two things you said. One was the hiding the secret part for the pads, or and then before that you said that like when children come into life and then you have to like you want to give it a time. You want to take care of that phase of life also
Yeah.
well. And you were into a profession which already had a lot of depth and required consistent work. What was it
Right.
like to kind of come up to that point where you kind of decided that, okay, was it like planned that you felt that, okay, after x number of years I would kind of take a break or kind of slow down on things? So how do you think that works for a woman who is into who's a scientist, and how would it work for a man who's a scientist? Of course, their way of thinking wouldn't be like maternity leave or something like that, or
Hmm.
paternity leave if that was there. But how do you see that? How is that difference? Because scientist is a profession mostly we see men following and kind of going for. So how does it work for a woman? Like, how did that work for you?
See, I initially expected my mother-in-law or my mother to be able to take care of my kids, but then both of them fell sick as soon as they grew up,
Okay.
and while they were born, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have that support system. I don't have other siblings or something to give me the support system where I can leave them in somebody's house where I feel comfortable with it. So then it became, who's going to take time off? My husband grew up in a typical house. He didn't know much about raising kids relative to how much I had been brought up with the idea of it.
Okay.
I don't know how to lift a baby. I don't know. When I was in college, people used to hand their babies over to me to, once in a while get a feel of how it is to lift a baby. He hadn't lifted a baby for many years. I didn't feel comfortable leaving the babies with him. I don't know whether I've not done the right thing. Maybe I should have given him more choice of staying around with the kids. But yeah, at that point, I felt that who's the best at this point to take care of the kids, he or me? And it seemed to me that I was a better choice at that point.
Great.
So, but I had no questions about it. I love having
Absolutely.
kids. I love this phase. And I've always been confident that I'll be able to get back and contribute to society afterwards also. So that was from the very beginning. I didn't have any doubts about it. So because of that, it wasn't that difficult for me.
Wow, that's such a good. That is what, the reason I asked you this question is to actually highlight the point that a lot
Mhm.
of times, in the name of women empowerment and female empowerment and the way we look at all this feminism in the wrong way, that is,
Right,
we kind of feel that a woman working, giving up work, it's a sacrifice or a happy compromise or
right.
whatever. But imagine like a person like you who's done so much of depth into the academic, into the profession, and then
Mhm.
wanting to take a call very happily on things and then knowing how to get back. That just shows the self-esteem part, how, I mean, you've taken care of it over a time, like of such a great period of time, and then coming back. So how much time did it take for you to come back and kind of figure things out? Because I'm sure you, as you said, you were working on what you're working on right now was
Mhm.
actually a result of what you were developing while the children were growing up, whether it was about the sex education or like you
Right.
took out that time to build. So your vision was already there in some way, maybe in the beginning, or was it like something that happened as the children grew up?
I think one of the major things that you do while educating yourself is not only knowledge content, it's also your skills that you develop.
Right.
And
Okay.
those skills are transferable anywhere.
Wow.
The skills, the values, what you develop values also actually while educating yourself. And those values are transferable, the skills are transferable. So it doesn't really matter. Right now, I'm leading the Pune Writers Group, one of the major organizers of it, and that
Wow.
also is, growing. And I see
Amazing.
various skills of mine that are changing. This is not the only book. I've written 3 books in the past, and I'm writing more books. And I'm going out to schools and talking in schools. So there are a variety of ways where I feel I have the confidence of doing things because I had done it while I was doing my PhD, perhaps. I don't know. But the skills are transferable.
So
The
one
knowledge might not be, but the skills are.
Wow. So you said something about parenting and, kind of your profession playing a role, as in, because you were a cell biologist, you kind of always studied and you had that curiosity. So when the children were like still in your womb, you were also kind of interested from that
Right,
biological point. So
right.
I'm very interested to know that whatever you learned or the skills that you needed or you acquired or you developed or you created, maybe, for the world, the things that you created,
Hmm.
what do you see, like, of those things being transferred into the parenting situation, or when you became a parent? I'm sure, how, talking to you, I can make out that there would have been
Right.
a lot of skills in your profession as a cell biologist that got extended into parenting and that helped in parenting and add a unique touch to it, like what you learned as a scientist or you picked up and then you kind of transferred it into your parenting phase of life. Was there anything like that?
I don't know necessarily, just
Mm-hmm.
yes. I mean, when I get a WhatsApp message, I'm aware that it might not be correct. So I
Verified.
verify it. That's the major thing, I think. Sometimes I do get swept up by it. When you read 15 different messages, you do get swept by it, and you're like, "Oh my God, is this real or is this true?" But at some point, the cell biologist kicks in, and like, maybe I should check out whether it's true or not. That's a
Okay.
major thing. Otherwise, I'm not exactly sure, but people tell me that I do things differently, but I'm not aware of them exactly. I don't know.
Okay, so let's say take a question here and a situation. So let's say when it comes to cell biology, what is
Right.
that one thing that you feel that learning and kind of working on that particular field, what is that one major life lesson that you've learned as a result of that, like that phase?
Any research takes a lot of patience. It's called research. It's not called search. It takes time and over and over and over again, a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience to do research. You won't imagine one sentence in your textbook, maybe 10,000 people worked for it for over
Exactly.
3 years or maybe 10 years to get that one sentence into your textbook. And I became humble, I think. I realized how little I know when I had just finished my bachelor's degree from Sapphire College, Bombay. I thought I was God knows who. I was Swati Ghosh back then. Swati Ghosh, I was on the top of the world. I knew everything. I'm an expert at so many things. And then I went in for further studies and I realized I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I don't know much. And there's a hell of a lot to learn in life. So
Absolutely.
I realized that there's a lot to learn, not only from the experts, from anybody. I mean, there's a lot to learn from people.
Mm, mm.
And that might be a person who's economically weak or economically doing fantastic. It doesn't really matter from what strata of life they're from, or from what country or place they're from. It doesn't really matter. There's a ton of things to learn from all sorts of things and
Okay.
all sorts of people.
All right. So when you say that, so let's say, did the concept of, a cell, being
Mhm.
like many cells come together to form something, when we teach children in very basic language, we say
Right.
that, a cell has some organelles, and then it has a nucleus, which is, and then there are some certain organelles, other organelles who kind of help in different things in. So has that concept ever helped you kind of understand and explain, or kind of practice your area of life, let's say family, where you understand that everybody is going to be different, there's going to be a power, somebody is going to take turns in certain roles that they play, somebody is going to be the nucleus, somebody is going to be the mitochondria, like, so has there ever come a situation where internally you thought of, how a cell is made and how it requires coordinated efforts of life?
Mhm.
Have you seen, I mean, coordinated efforts of things inside a cell, and then many cells coming together to make something bigger work? Do you
Right.
think that has kind of helped you understand your life? Because the way you come across, so easy to connect with, and kind of the way you even talk of parenting and how you connected with that also, it shows that you had that clarity of relationships also, and things how they were working internally with each other. So did you ever feel, and is there any connection that kind of now you think about, like between a cell and how a family runs?
Well, I do think that if you take a box, a concrete box, and you ask a person to live inside it, what do you need to live inside it? It correlates with what happens in a cell.
Okay.
You need to make doors
Hmm.
so that you can communicate with the outside. You can go in and out. So a cell will also need some way of interacting with the outside. You'll need some windows so that items can come in and out of the cell.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
need some form of communication because you need to know what's going on outside.
Right.
Same thing. You need a kitchen. You need some place to cook food. You need some place to cook energy or make materials inside the cell also.
Hmm.
You need a command center. You need somebody who's telling what to do, where to do, some sort of
Wow.
protocol. It's very similar in many ways. Of you need plumbing. Again, a cell also needs plumbing. Uh, so
Wow.
explaining what a cell does, I say just imagine what is required for a human being living in a cube, and you'll find all of the organelles for a cell also. Because a cell does exactly the same thing. It has mechanisms of uh, bringing in material, of exporting a material, of communicating outside, of creating energy for itself, getting
Wow.
to get rid of the waste material
Absolutely.
that
Yes.
it's
Yes.
generating. It it has the same organelles.
Wow. So here you just compared a system with a system. What if, supposing if I wanted to understand myself better, how would, if I was a student of biology, and I am, but I don't have that much of depth like you do. So I would love to
Right.
learn that, if supposing I had to understand a human being, how a
Mhm.
human being works, was, I mean, more of the spiritual part or the mental part, the parts that are not visible to the world, but that,
Right.
requires internal processing. So similarly, a cell, whatever's inside is not visible to the world, it's all inside. So ma'am,
Correct.
how would you kind of interpret, what are the similarities in the way the cell works, and how the not visible part of a human works, maybe the brain, the heart, the soul?
I've never thought of that question, frankly. This is something new to think about. Um, yeah, I mean, we're magic. That much I know. Humans are, I mean, all life beings, it's just amazing system that we are. All
Absolutely.
living things. It's just amazing. I've always found how a small, tiny seed has everything that is required for making it to a
Absolutely.
tree,
Same thing
a
with us human
huge
beings.
tree, and
Yes.
everything is in that seed, that tiny little seed, and that the tree might be 500 feet tall for all I know, and everything is in that,
Right.
and that's just amazing to me. life is amazing. And yes,
Wow.
the spiritual thing is that we're so amazing, don't waste it. you know, we
Yeah,
are amazing. Even though the worst of days, on no matter how terrible you're feeling, you're living.
absolutely.
And that's astonishing. That's
Right.
astonishing, and that can give you the enthusiasm for doing anything else, because there are people who are not living and there are people who are living. And
Mm-hmm.
if we are going to cry for people who are not living, then that means this life means something. So don't sit around just crying for that person. Do something with that life. You know, I mean,
Nice.
it's so whenever somebody dies who's close to me, that's usually the thought that goes to me, that let's go eat ice cream and have some fun and enjoy this life. I know it might be very odd when I'm coming back from a funeral or something. I'm
But
going
trying
to
to make
ice
yourself
cream,
normal.
but I
Yeah.
feel like this is one life I have. That person didn't have that life. I have it. If I'm trying for that person, then I better be enjoying this life I have. It's a precious gift. It's a very
Wow. So, ma'am, you said about your parenting. That brings me to the seed connection, that you said that seed has, of course, everything that it needs to grow and to
Mhm.
kind of, whatever's required, it's all contained internally. So,
Right.
when we speak of, let's say, even a human being and especially children, when they are, I mean, somewhere we feel that, yes, they have what it takes. The potential is all inside. It just
Right.
needs the right tapping and the right, maybe, environment at times
Mhm.
to kind of nurture it in the right way. So, ma'am, looking at your own children and then now the children that you're working with or that you worked with at school or the adults that you meet around you, do you feel that, I mean, what is the balance? Like, so do we say that every individual has what it takes inside, or and therefore they'll grow up to be, good things and good people and all of that? Or do we also look at the idea that a right environment, a right system is required for things to grow? So with children it's going to be different from adults. I mean, children and adults are a
Right.
little different. So how do you see a child with that concept of seed having everything it takes, and then the other concept being, creating the environment so that it gets the right nurturing for a child first?
See, um, when I take a seed, if it doesn't have water and the right germination conditions,
Mm-hmm.
it cannot grow into the tree.
Correct.
So it needs the right conditions to grow into a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But if the seed is not going to become a tree, has it gone to waste? Not necessarily. There are lots of bacteria and fungi and animals that are maybe surviving on that seed, and it's going into a completely new format. Those bacteria might be necessary for producing nitrogen for the plants that I'm going to eat, and maybe those are going into me ultimately. Or maybe it's a seed that I'm eating and is making me. It's not meant for being a tree, it's for making you and me and everybody else who's eating those seeds, right?
Wow.
So it's not that it's gone to waste, it's just gone in a different manner.
Right.
I'm
Wow.
eating so many seeds every single day.
Hmm.
Rice is, peas, everything, so many things I'm eating are seeds.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
seeds, it's not that they didn't have the potential to be plants,
Right.
but they're surviving, they're letting me live.
Correct. Correct.
So
Yes.
that's also a purpose. It's not a purpose that is necessarily that was written in the DNA of it, but I'm grateful that I have those seeds in me and I get to eat them, and I'm very grateful for that energy that they're giving me. So it's different. It's okay. There's no energy lost, no energy gained. The system is same in the
Okay.
world, right?
Wonderful.
It's different.
Okay. So now when you work on the children for sex education and
Hmm.
explaining them about relationships, I think a
Right.
lot of parents have this concern. Even when I talk to parents, I've heard this from parents, like, as a concern that,
Mhm.
today children are growing up in an environment which is so rapidly, growing, and, growing in various ways. There's hypersexualization of things. There's always this angle of, लड़का लड़की अभी भी जैसे हम लोग जितना भी बोल दे, they are all equal and there's all of that. But then
Mhm.
even a girl and a boy chatting or kind of connecting is still kind of a taboo in many ways, in the social rumors or the kind of things that go behind, I mean, behind the scenes. So I mean, looking at all of that, parents have this concern that we have to put our child in the right environment. How do we? So there are some parents, I've seen that, who will try to kind of protect the child all the time, saying that I know my child is good internally. So what you're talking of the seed, that the
Mhm.
seed has everything it takes, it has, the child also has the goodness, so eventually the child will grow up to be good. So
Yeah.
there are some parents who would kind of have that mentality that, no, I know my child is good, but I cannot risk my child among wrong kinds of people, so I will be overprotective. And then there is another parent type which kind of says that, no, the environment is always going to change, I cannot control which people are going to be around my children. I can equip my children with the right resources all the time, so that they have the tools to kind of know when to kind of withdraw, when to kind of extend, and how to kind of take care of life. So ma'am, with your experience, which kind of parent have you seen more often, and in Pune especially, and then, I mean, with your experience in other places? So yeah, that's the first question, then I'll go on the second one.
People are confused. People are confused what to do.
Yes.
And I don't blame them.
Hmm.
We humans usually learn from our predecessors. We learn from experience, we learn from other people.
Right.
We copy other people. We're herd
Hmm.
animals, we copy other people. If you want to copy our mother, maybe. If you want to copy my grandmother got married at the age of 11.
Hmm.
Can I give that to my daughter? No.
Hmm. Hmm.
Times have changed a lot.
Right, right.
So I cannot
Absolutely.
look up to my grandmother for information as to how should I raise my daughter necessarily, and what information to give my daughter at this age, because my grandmother had to know about the facts of life before 11, because if she didn't get pregnant by the time she was 13 or 14 years old, she would have been looked down upon. She
Hmm.
might have been ostracized in the village. And what
Right,
is this?
right,
This girl is
right.
not having children yet.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Yes.
I can't look up to her. So where
Yes.
do I look?
Yes,
E-
absolutely.
And I think this is the same thing that a majority, we like to believe in traditional values for many things, but we can't look at tradition for this particular thing, because in my grandmother's time, the average life expectancy was maybe 35 or 37, or uh, while now it's 70, 75. So yes, in her times it was very important to get married by the age of 13, so that you can help your children raise their children a little bit, and support them at that time. And then you'll die. While we have a lot of time later on, so we can't put the same figures today. And we can't
Hmm.
look up to our old history today to come
Hmm.
up with ideas as to how and when to explain to our children things
Hmm.
about the facts of life.
Right. So I think you are emphasizing on this point of actually conveying to children at an early age about everything, because now is not the time, when we can wait for children to grow up and learn, or wait for experience to teach them, because the experiences are growing and, I mean, kind of changing every day, and it's becoming a world where they can put themselves into a lot of danger if they're not equipped. Because
Mhm.
most of the time they also are like, I've seen this in children, especially teenagers, and in fact pre-teens it starts, when children start wanting to kind of take a kind of decision for themselves in many things. And now parents have started realizing that you can't pressurize a child and force a child to do something. They will take their own kind of decisions in life. So I totally agree on that. So ma'am, some concluding remarks, like, what do you feel that, I mean, raising a boy, a lot of children feel that, that, they like, because they grow up with that attitude of seeing, yes, women empowerment, especially girls, they feel, we have to be empowered and we have to do this right. But which one do you think? I know this situation right now needs instant solutions. I mean, we
Mhm.
cannot be thinking that, we'll work on this first and then this. But do you think that, raising a boy well and understanding boys well will solve the bigger problem of women being treated wrong at homes or in workplaces? Or do you think, more effort has to be put on the woman being, too empowered and getting her right, and then she will find a way to kind of struggle through with whatever happens in life with men around? Where can we,
Are required. Both are required. I think boys don't have a place in a society right now, boys are raised to think that they have to work and they have to earn the money,
Yes.
and there's no option to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I often hear rather women saying that I've never had an option. But boys
Mm-hmm.
also didn't have the option. Your husband
Right.
didn't have the option either.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, he was never given the option that you can stay at home, you can take a creative profession where you might not earn much, but as long as you're happy, we're happy. We didn't give that choice to the men who are existing in the society right now. Most of them haven't. Yes, women have also not been given perhaps the choice, but neither have the men. That's what I feel for people my generation. I hear this a lot that women are saying that I don't have support, but neither did your husband have support
Right.
in doing what he
Absolutely.
wanted to do. He maybe wanted to be a artist or a journalist or a theater person or maybe something else, or maybe he doesn't feel like working that many hours a day. But was he given the choice? No, neither were you given the choice. That's for our generation, educated lot. Obviously, I'm talking about the ones who are. There are, I'm sure, people who are repressed in various forms. But again, even if you're repressed, it's if a woman is not allowed at all to work outside the house, also the husband was never allowed not to think about earning the entire bread of the family, because that's how it was. So if you give both of them the chance, then yes, then it becomes a more equal world where burdens are shared, troubles are shared, enjoyment is shared, life is shared.
Wow. And one last suggestion to other women, who kind of feel that, they want to do more with life. They've invested in enough education, like let's say they've done MBAs and they've done a lot of studies up to master's, PhD, and then they maybe willingly, unwillingly had to kind of get into a situation either due to children or not due to children. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we women blame children, but it's not always
Right.
that. It's also a choice that we bring in
Yes.
children into the world.
Right.
So, I mean, it's unfair to blame children for that. But then do you feel that there's some advice or suggestion that you want to give to those women, especially who kind of have done a lot of investment in themselves, and then they kind of find a long break of say 5 to 10 years and then kind of get back to work? Do you have some suggestion like you did, like kind of how do they utilize this time and have a vision from the start while they're raising the child, that they would get back into contributing to society? Of course they are already contributing through raising a child well,
Right.
but
Right.
also if they want to do have more professional goals, what can
Mhm.
they do? What are one of the two things that they can do?
I think women don't realize how much they've been doing, how much of management every single woman who's running a household does. You run people who are working in the house, who are living in the house. You are cajoling them, pampering them, making them work, however it may
Absolutely.
be.
Right.
Maybe sometimes you're showing a very strict face, sometimes you're just pampering them, however it may be. You are CEO of your house, and in so many ways people women are have been such great managers of both family as well as people who are working in the house, of the neighbors. If you have neighbors gossiping, how do you stop them from gossiping? Well, you've
Wow.
been controlling that too, and you're contributing to society in so many ways. It's every time you take a cloth bag to the grocery shop instead of using plastic bag, a disposable plastic bag. You're
Yes.
contributing.
Right. Right.
Every time
Absolutely.
you turn off the tap, you're contributing. So there's so many ways that people are contributing. It's not only through earning money only. You're saving money. You're changing society. You are you are encouraging people to work and do so many things. And women are great at that, and so are men. But even if you're a woman sitting at home, you've been doing a lot.
Yes. Wow. So
So
that
don't think that you've not been doing anything. You have the people management skills, and if you feel that it's the time to move on to something else, well, you've got it. your life, everything, as I said, life is magical. If you're living, you have magic in you. So
And always being open to learning. I think what you're
open
pointing
to
at
learning.
is the fact that, whatever you are engaged in, you should give your full to that moment. Because if you, in whether it's education, whether it's learning, whatever phase of life anybody is in, if we all give our 100% into parenting, 100% into this, I think that helps extend skills and things to the next phase of life or a parallel
Yes,
phase of life. So let's say I'm a
correct.
working mother who's working full time or working a lot of the days of the hour, and then
Mm,
supposing become a parent, and I again, the moment when I'm with the child, or when I'm with my husband, or when I'm with my mother and father, or grandparents, or parents in law, then
mm,
you're saying that every moment, if you're doing your full, you know fully being present, then
correct.
it's helping you not only develop skills in that situation, but it equips you enough to extend the good skills into another situation, personal and professional, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
There are
Wow.
so many skills that you can pick up from doing each and every job in life. I mean, whether you're paid for it or not paid for it is a separate question, but you are picking up and
Skills,
learning
yes.
skills,
Right.
and you can use them in other aspects of life. Absolutely.
Wow. Such a pleasure talking to you, ma'am. The way we met for the first time, and then, I mean, after this, it just doesn't feel that we had a break of not talking. So
It's
wonderful.
been wonderful speaking to you. I'm just getting really inspired by all of the things you're doing.
Thank
It's
you so much. And I look forward to
really
doing
nice.
it with you further, because as we discussed, but this coronavirus thing needs to come down first for us to get into action mode
Action,
further.
I know, I know. Well, maybe we'll figure out something in spite of coronavirus.
Right.
Or maybe it will force us to think of different ways
No, let's connect
and better
further
ways.
and let's discuss more, because this conversation has also generated ideas on what you said about, maybe doing something parallelly for women. There are so many women that kind of, like, we are aware women, we know what we are thinking, doing, feeling all the time. But most
Yes,
women are just living, as in just
yes,
doing it for the sake of it, whether it's study, whether it's life, whether it's relationships. Not many, they say they want to do more, they're living it. But I know what we are talking, we're talking of.
yes,
I mean, that depth is not there, that awareness is not there of being, awakened from inside. And unless that awakening happens, no true empowerment is possible, I feel. Because,
correct.
it's like all on the top, what's happening everywhere. Everybody is just talking the superficial empowerment of either having a title or having a company to work at, or, showing yourself as a worthy of this award and worthy of this presence. But I think most people are not having that awakening inside, which is a result of the depth they have developed or the mindfulness they have put into areas of life. I think that is something majorly missing with girls and women, and I think we can
I
work on
think
that
boys both.
equally.
I mean,
Absolutely.
people feel that they don't have a choice. You do have a choice.
Hmm.
It's our choice every single minute, every
Right.
single day. And people feel stuck that they don't have choices. So, yes, we should definitely do something on that.
We'll definitely connect, ma'am,
Sure.
after this call, and it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.